All right, so I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update. A little while ago, I alluded to or posted that I had ordered a Rapidchange ATC, and I can confirm that it has arrived. I'm very excited to get this set up and ready to go on my machine. We'll see what all that entails here shortly. Um, but I just wanted to kind of go over what was in the box, what you can kind of expect, and what I ordered. So this is the 6 socket magazine, and in the previous generation, one of the sockets would be, if you wanted, would be used up for a tool setter. But they've come up with some new electronics and a new design that incorporates a tool setter as a separate module. So this module sits over here, and it's separate, so you still have use of all 6 of your sockets. So if you look on the side, you can tell this is all HDPE. So this is the white part, and the black part is all HDPE material, and it's all machined. Um, then you've got the tool setter and the end caps. These are 3D printed. So these, the end caps here that encapsulate the electronics and hold some of the wiring on either side is 3D printed. The tool setter housing is also 3D printed. Then there is I actually, as part of the setup, when mine first arrived, I did have a bit of an issue with it, where the tool setter was just tripped the entire time. And so um, I jumped on a call in the Discord channel with the creators, and they were able to walk me through how to fix that. We checked a few things, but ultimately what it was, if you get one of these newer generation ones and you have an issue, I think they're going to fix this in the next release. But if you pull up on this little cap, so this is again just a little 3D printed part. When you pull up on this cap, you've got, this is the trigger point for the sensor down below. So this is a little magnet in there. So make sure that polarity matters. If you put it the wrong way, you'll have a problem. But you've got a magnet on a metal shaft, and I haven't glued it in yet, but they're going to start gluing these in. But it's a dowel pin that goes into a 3D printed part with a metal cap on it, and that dowel pin in shipping had jiggled down a little bit, so it was always tripped. It had basically always had the sensor tripped. So that was my problem with my unit. So when I first got it and wired it up, it looked like I had something was wrong. Ultimately, it was just that. Once the dowel pin was fully inserted in the top cap, then obviously the sensor worked properly. So you put the dowel pin back in and put everything back together, and it's all good. So you can see on the side there's a blue LED light. So now my sensor works properly. So support was awesome. They were very helpful. Very willing to, like I said, get on a video call and just troubleshoot it. So no problems there. Definitely good support. It's an American company. They're trying to do as much as they can in-house as far as the machining and the building and whatnot. So I think that's pretty cool, as well as the software. So part of the whole Rapidchange ATC is the software and the macros that go with it to control how your spindle moves, how your machine moves, where it loads tools, that sort of stuff. And so they have this great website that you go on, you put in a few parameters, and it outputs all of your macros and your settings that you'll need for setting that up. So very cool. In the box, just to get back to where I was, you'll get 4 of the M6x50 bolts, as well as some locating pins. That's what these are here, is these locating pins. So essentially what they provide is a DFX file that you load in your machine, and then you would mill out on your spoil board somewhere. And so when you mill it out on your spoil board, you obviously have it then located and everything is good. If you choose not to do that, there is another way to locate it once you have it mounted. So you would, in the other box or other bag, I guess, there is this locate locator disc. And the idea behind the locator disc is, get this to sit somewhere here, is that it fits right inside of one of these, just very nicely like that. And this pin fits in here, and then this goes into your spindle. So the idea being that you put this in, wedge that. I don't know if there's a right or a wrong way, but I'll wedge that later. Anyway, you wedge the pin onto the locator 3D printed part, and then you would move your spindle so that it lines up perfectly with slot 1, and you would mark those machine coordinates so that you can locate your cassette. The other thing you get is a couple additional sockets. So these are the socket rings that go down inside, and that's what catches the, in my case, an ER11 nut. So it's a pretty simplistic design, which is pretty cool. It's, again, a 3D printed part with some ball bearings in it. And that just grabs onto the nut and holds it firmly. And then inside here, inside the cassette or the magazine, these are on springs, and they'll go down and engage so that the nut doesn't spin, and it can spin off and tighten. Spin off and loosen, and then spin on and tighten. So pretty cool design, and like I said, very well manufactured. So basically, what my plan is, because if you can't do it a little bit different and a little bit hard, why do it? So this is my 3D printed. So instead of milling out on my wasteboard and taking up wasteboard material or working space, my hope is, if it all works, if it doesn't, I'll change my plan. But my current plan is to take the 3D printed part, which I based off of the DFX file. I ended up having to split it into 2 parts to make it work. But I take the Rapidchange ATC, take this out so I don't lose it. And it's going to mount using 6 M5 bolts, which is the part I'm waiting on right now. And I'm going to bolt it to the front of the machine right here. Wire's going to go in that channel there and be tucked up out of the way. And then the Rapidchange ATC is going to be indexed here, and it's going to sit nicely at the front of the machine. At least that's the plan. Obviously, some people are going to ask, hey, you're not going to be able to access those T-slots. I have a little bit of a plan for that. One, I can load them from the top, obviously, from the front or back of the machine. A little bit more of a pain in the butt, but I can do it. The other option is I can just mill out a little bit of the front of the T-track if everything works out, and make some allowance to get the bolts in and out of there. So I've got a couple different options. We'll see what I end up doing. But yeah, so the 3D printed part fits the locating pins, has allowance for the M6 screws to go in, and it should bolt everything up nice and tight. We'll see when I run it for the first time if everything falls apart. If that's the case, I will, like I said, I will pivot and come up with a plan B. But those bolts should be here later today, and I'm just getting that organized. So 2 of the things I did want to go over is on my setup at least. So for the Rapidchange ATC, I'm using sorry about the wiring mess, but I'm using the super longboard is my controller. And so with the super longboard, this is the cable for the Rapidchange ATC. Basically, I am stealing 24 volts from one of the switch ports that they have, and then I'm just using the tool length setter, which is this yellow wire, and the black wire goes to the TLS port, the tool length sensor port on the super longboard. So the connections are relatively straightforward, pretty simple. Like I said, just borrowing 24 volts off of one of the switch ports, and then using the 2 ports on the TLS. The TLS does supply power, but it's only 5 volts, and you need 24 volts for the Rapidchange ATC. So just as an FYI, that's how I have mine wired up. And everything is looking good right now. The other thing that you need to do, at least on the super longboard, is you need to update the firmware to at least the 5.05 release. And that's all documented again in the website. that they have set up. So it provides the link to the firmware file, but you will need to back up your config, save it, and then flash the firmware and put your config back on. So that's another piece of software stuff I need to do to get everything ready. So I'm hoping to do that later this afternoon. Once I have those two things ready, and that firmware basically allows the super longboard to use the SD card. So the only other thing that you need to supply then is a 32 gig or less, 32 gig or smaller SD card. And I really probably would recommend like a 16 gig or smaller SD card. The file sizes that are going on the SD card are really small, but there definitely is issues with SD cards larger than 32 gigs. So if you can find a smaller one, that's definitely in your best interest. Just with the way the machine loads the SD card and stuff, having it larger than 32 gigs will cause you problems. So just as an FYI there. Yeah, those are the insights. Like I said, this afternoon when those bolts arrive, I will hopefully have time to come out and bolt it all together and do the firmware upgrade, and then I can start the location, trying to locate the socket 1 so that I can get the macros built and set up. Obviously, I don't want to do that until the bracket and everything is in place and sturdy, because you want that locating procedure needs to be done as precisely as possible. So yeah, so that's kind of an update on the Rapidchange ATC. Like I said, hopefully I can get it running later this afternoon. Awesome. Thanks for your time.